Well, I guess everybody's worried about what might happen to the chip prices going into the next quarter and the quarter after. As you know, that the earnings numbers for 3Q were coming in at much better than expected, or at least it's showing a quite significant growth rate from the previous quarter as well as the previous year. The numbers growth rates are like at a 25% Q on Q, 27.9% growth rate on year numbers. So these numbers are extremely high, but as you said, the underperformance is happening. And the reason for that is because a lot of people are worried about the supply disruption that might be happening and that the demand might be weakening and the prices might be falling. It's all is what if. A lot of people are worried about the fourth quarter of this year and next year. So this is the main reason why the Samsung Electronics has underperformed quite significantly despite the huge earnings growth rate. However, we think that the disruption in terms of the supply side and demand side is not going to be that significant. And we do think that the price decline that might happen over the next 2 quarters would be probably bottoming out in the second quarter next year. And then once again, demand should be quite strong, and therefore earnings, I guess seasonality is not going to be that significant. On top of that, we think that the smartphone models are doing so much better than expected, and therefore I guess the so far has been the underperformance because of the future expectations. But we think that if the earnings continue to come in better than expected, then share price can have probably better performance in the future.
When? When in the future?
Hello?
When in the future
Well,
would the share price catch up? Because if somebody's watching right now and saying, okay, is Samsung at this point of underperformance a good bet for upside? We just want to understand when that catch up may happen.
Right. If you look at the, if you're just looking at just the DRAM prices and the semiconductor side, the Korea's Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, they are the worst performing out of all the semiconductor sector. If you look at the equipment side as well as the SOX index, Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, the level of the decline is relatively not that much. But within that index, if you look at the Micron, the share price performance has been quite poor, along with the SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics. So it's all about the seasonality factor of the DRAM cycle-wise. And everybody is concerned about the, I guess, high volatility of that. But as I said, if the bottoming out of the seasonality factor is coming in, say, second quarter of next year or the first quarter of next year, then the share price will move 3 months or 6 months prior to that. On top of that, I guess a lot of people are concerned about this fourth quarter of Korea because there's a lot of the corporate governance issues or the tax issues and domestic investors net buying, because this company is the largest out of all the companies in Korea. And you need a domestic investment to come back to push up the share prices. And we're not going to see that probably until towards the end of this year. So I guess all this is meaning that the recovery in terms of prices might be happening towards the end of this year, maybe next year, the first quarter.